This is America's moon port, the John F. Kennedy Space Center at Cape Kennedy, Florida. For more than a decade now, this has been one of the major centers of America's mammoth space program. On dozens of occasions over the past few years, the eyes of the nation, indeed the world, have focused here on the Cape. It was from here that the world's most powerful rockets, the giant Saturn V's of the Apollo program, blasted America onto the moon.
And the tape will tell you what they do there.
The large dish-shaped antenna visible on the left was employed in the Mercury and Gemini programs.
It was not just a brilliant vindication of American organization and technology, but also perhaps the most momentous single achievement in modern times. Small wonder then that the Kennedy Moonport now draws the tourists like pilgrims to a shrine.
Normal speed is 1 mile an hour with load.
For $2.50, visitors can pay a tourist's homage to some of the extraordinary equipment that made the moonshot possible. The Vehicle Assembly Building, for example, towers 525 feet high and covers 8 acres. It's more than 4 times the size of the United Nations headquarters in New York.
There's a row of lights just above it, a foot or two above the sign. Let's count rows of light. This opening in the wall that we're looking for is not too apparent. Really, it's just an absence of these crisscross members. That marks the center of High Bay 3. That yellow structure
Inside the building, this is just a quarter of it, it's impossible not to be impressed by the drive and determination which powered the American bid for the moon. With 2 successful moon landings behind them, America's space planners have plenty to be proud of. Even the aborted Apollo 13 mission turned out in the end to be more of a human triumph than a mechanical failure.
They're under the high bay roof, and they travel in a left-to-right direction.
After so many achievements, it might be thought that the future of the American aerospace industry would be rosy, but it's not. Having spent $24,000 million on the Apollo program, the federal government is now beginning to tighten its purse strings, and the pinch is being felt in aerospace establishments all over the nation. In Cape Kennedy, for example, the Apollo program has been halted, and many people are beginning to wonder whether future tourists will be coming to visit an operational moonport or a museum. Nobody is more aware of these difficulties than Dr. Thomas Paine, head of NASA, or the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. What sort of future does he see for his country's space program?
Well, the future is really an unlimited future. The potential for moving ahead in space is greater than it's ever been. I think it's fair to characterize our present state of technology in space as not much beyond where the Wright brothers were in aviation. There's a tremendous, endless frontier out there in front of us. But I think space has its ups and downs, just like the early days of aviation, just like many other activities have had. And at the present time, we're going through a period where we're more or less past the large development that the Apollo program represented, and we're still in the very early days of the development of the follow-on systems to Apollo.
Well, then, are we in a down period? Is this what you're saying?
Yes, we're in a valley at the present time, and the space program has been very substantially cut back. We've gone from peak employment of Americans throughout the country working on the space program of some 420,000 people down to about 190,000 today. And by the end of the fiscal year 1971, we'll be down to about 145,000 people. So there have been very substantial layoffs. Although many of these people are not walking the streets looking for jobs, quite a few of them have gone into other parts of the economy, and this is one of the ways that the expertise we've developed in space has been put out into other industries.
The drop in manpower is a reflection of NASA's dwindling budget, which fell from its record level of nearly $6,000 million 4 years ago to a little over half that this year. In real terms, the drop's even greater than it appears because production costs have been rising steeply year by year. The resulting cutbacks have affected a whole range of companies, from small contractors to such giants of American industry as Boeing, Lockheed and Chrysler. Sales for the aerospace industry were down last year for the first time in 14 years, and another drop is forecast for this year. It's not only the aerospace contractors who felt the wind from NASA's punctured balloon. Highly paid engineers mean good business for any community, and in nearby Cocoa Beach, the departing spacemen are keenly missed. Hotels and nightclubs, most of them named after the industry which until now has fed them so well, are doing only 3/4 of the business they used to. Some hotels have had to cut their prices by up to a third.
Cape Kennedy has been particularly hard hit. Cape Kennedy is sort of in the position that a military base is at the end of a war, you might say. The situation there is that at the time of Apollo 7 in late 1968, we were at our peak employment down there. We had some 26,500 people working on the NASA part of the space program. That doesn't count the Air Force people down at Patrick Air Force Base in the Eastern Test Range. Well, that 26,500 has been gradually reduced, and today we're down to about 17,500. That's a cutback of about 25%. And at the present time, we're still finding some ways to economize here and there as we greatly reduce the launch schedule. And I would guess that by the end of July, we'll probably be down to somewhere between 16,500 and 17,000.
Well, now, do you see this as a permanent condition or at Cape Kennedy? I mean, this lower level.
Well, it isn't permanent in the sense of all time, but it's certainly going to persist for several years. You see, what we've done there is we've gone from the ability to launch 4 of our giant Saturn V manned rockets every year, which we did last year, down to a level where we're going to launch about 2 a year. And that means that one shift can pretty well handle one of these vehicles all the way through. Now, as we go to our Skylab project, we're going to be using all the Apollo equipment and personnel we possibly can for economy reasons, so that's not going to really represent a big buildup in activity at the Cape.
For Cocoa Beach and surrounding Brevard County, the cutback has been all the more of a shock because of the easy times that went before. Since 1950, Cocoa Beach has seen its population grow tenfold from 25,000 to its present 250,000. In the same time, it's had 2 major building booms worth a total of about $3,000 million. The present recession has left it gasping. Houses which were once eagerly snapped up now remain unsold for months. One man with a professional interest in the matter is Bill Risley, who deals in real estate in Brevard County.
As you know, we've had a very serious cutback over the course of the last year. It's having the effect of changing the entire aspect of our community. Of course, many of the higher paid aerospace employees are leaving. We're in the transition from an aerospace economy here to the type of economy that's more prevalent in other parts of Florida. That is an economy based on tourism and retirees.
How serious is the drop in land values in Brevard County?
Well, actually, land values have dropped surprisingly little. It has had the effect of lowering the demand for vacant land simply because we have very little construction going on at the moment. But most of the property is in fairly strong hands. We have had no actual panic selling.
Do you expect this trend to continue?
Well, of course, in addition to our local problems, now we have some national problems with the slowing of the economy. A lot depends on the financing situation, but there are continuing cutbacks predicted. We don't know exactly how far they're going to go, however, at this time.
Nowhere are the effects of the cutback more evident than in the downtown area of Cocoa Beach. Small traders have been going out of business at an alarming rate, and even long-established concerns have been forced to shut up shop. Some traders have decided to stick it out, hoping another NASA-fed boom may come to save them. Their expectations are based on projects such as Skylab, an orbiting space station served by a reusable rocket. But Dr. Payne is not too optimistic.
Well, we are looking right now broadly across the country at where we're going to be carrying out the test operations, the development activities, and where we're going to be carrying out the eventual test and launch activities and operating these systems. And I would be very surprised if Cape Kennedy didn't turn out to be one of the very favorable places for this kind of work, although the final reports aren't yet in. But one of the hopes in the space shuttle system, of course, is that we'll be able to launch and recover and relaunch these vehicles with much less work and far fewer people than we have today to launch one of these giant Saturn V expeditions to the moon. So I think that it won't be like a brand new Saturn program for Cape Kennedy, but I think it will be a sustained activity that will keep a good, solid workforce at the Cape. That's my guess.
There will always be a Cape Kennedy, you feel?
There'll always be a Cape Kennedy. There'll always be an American space program, and although we've been cut back very severely, having 16,000, 17,000 people on the payroll down there is still a big, healthy payroll for any community. We're very sorry to see the personal tragedies that this has brought to people. Layoffs, families looking for work, having to move away from places that they really enjoy being, and it is an awfully nice place down at the Cape. We're very sorry for this social cost that has accompanied the cutbacks in the nation's space program. I might mention one other thing, though, about Cape Kennedy. We are seeing an increasing number of Americans on vacation stopping by the Cape to see what NASA's doing. Last year we had 1,400,000 people come through Cape Kennedy, and we open up our gates to them and take them through, show them everything, let them bring their cameras and take pictures. People come from all over the world, actually. And I think that there has been some stimulus to the tourist trade in that part of Florida around Brevard County from NASA's activities, even though we're in a cut-back position.
Tourism, of course, is the obvious answer to the economic problems caused by the rundown at the Cape, and the local authorities are wasting no time in cashing in on the natural assets of their region. Brevard County already calls itself the surfing capital of the Space Coast. The Space Coast extends both north and south of Cape Kennedy, 32 miles of shining white beaches facing the rolling blue Atlantic. As the publicity brochures are quick to point out, this is an area which has never experienced smoke, smog or snow, and where the average temperature for the year is well over 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Surfing and other beach activities bring about $8.5 million a year into these East Coast resorts, but beaches are not the only attractions. Port Canaveral is being developed to serve a large area just inland from the coast. Here, miles of waterways offer a wide range of activities from fishing and bird watching to cruising and powerboat racing. In this part of Florida, the rivers are still unspoiled and offer the discerning tourist a real alternative to the brash commercialism of places like Miami further to the south. Many of the people whose job it is to promote new business in the area don't seem too perturbed by the new situation on the Cape. Chuck Johnson of the Cape Kennedy Chamber of Commerce is one of them.
Well, obviously, when you move this many people out of an area, it has a very definite effect on the economy. However, we are in a transition stage. We're moving from concentration on the aerospace commercial business, for instance, in our apartments and motels, restaurants, and so on, into a much heavier tourist and also convention economy. And our tourism has been on a steady rise for the last couple of years, especially this past year, very much so. We have had this past winter, probably the greatest winter visitor season we've ever had. And this has been largely due to the fact that we have advertised much more heavily, advertising the 8 miles of beaches that we have here and the tours taking off from this area. And of course, there's a growing interest in the area related to the upcoming opening of Disney World. Walt Disney World is just straight over from us. We're the most direct and closest beach to it. And I feel that, without a doubt, that'll have a tremendous impact on the number of people coming here. What we'll try to sell them, of course, is stay here in the Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral beaches area and visit Disney World and all the other interesting places from here.
Walt Disney World is often quoted by the locals as the answer to all the region's problems. On a 27,000-acre site at Orlando, Florida, a fantasy world is being created to give endless amusement to old and young alike. This mammoth project is scheduled to open in October '71, and 8 million visitors are expected in its first year of operation.
Can you scratch your head too? Look at him. He's scratching his head, just like that.
Meanwhile, in the part that's already open, youngsters can wander through the Tree Zoo to stare in wonder at their favorite animal characters shaped in wood and leaf.
Isn't he cute? Did you have a llama ride once? You did, didn't you? You rode behind him on a cart. Sure enough. Yes, sir. There's your little old hat. Yeah, now
But for Walt Disney World, the really big money will come not from the children, but from their parents. And in a specially designed preview theatre, the slick sales presentation is already underway.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Walt Disney World Preview Center. We have a moment before our show will begin, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the model that you see in front of you.
Several times a day, in a darkened auditorium, hostess Debbie Dane persuasively explains the attractions to those tourists who've bothered to turn off the main highway to find out what Walt Disney World is all about. Few are disappointed, and those who are still uncertain when Debbie's finished are soon convinced by the mini Son et Lumière show that follows.
Our show's just about to begin. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Vacation Kingdom, with attractions and activities designed for the entire family and for an entire vacation. It's a world of water recreation, where you can swim and sail and water ski, or take a romantic cruise for miles across the broad lake and sheltered lagoon. It's a world of action, where you can play golf on 18-hole championship courses.
As the show unfolds, the commentary describes a world where every prospect pleases, a fairyland for the over 40s. After the pageant, Debbie filled in some of the details for our benefit.
The splendor of an Asian palace. Across the waters of the lagoon, a touch of old Venice. The Persian-style resort seems to step right out of the Arabian Nights.
This is our contemporary hotel, which will open in October of 1971. It's our flagship hotel, 10 stories tall and A-framed. So you can see the monorail, which is high-speed train, runs through the lobby of the Contemporary. The lobby is larger than a football field. We'll have many different recreational activities at Walt Disney World, such as swimming, scuba diving, sailing, horseback riding. On our lagoon, you can see water skiing. And again, this is the lobby of our Contemporary Hotel with the monorail running through.
The tremendous advance publicity for Walt Disney World will probably ensure its success, and the project has encouraged similar, although more modest, developments elsewhere. This 1,300-acre site in Brevard County has already been cleared to build a new Ocean Park Recreation Center. Across the lagoon from Cape Kennedy, the First National Bank on Merritt Island optimistically invites all and sundry to join the Florida boom. It's here this autumn that a vast new shopping plaza will be officially opened. It's cost over $10 million to build, a sum which is itself impressive evidence of the developer's unshakable faith in the economic future of the area. But the question the people of the Cape should now be asking themselves is whether their new industries will still be able to support them should the space program be trimmed even further. It's less than a decade since the first American orbited the Earth, but already there's talk of winding up NASA within the next 10 years and handing over what's left of the space program to the civil airlines. We asked Dr. Payne how he saw the next stage in the development of the space program and why he thought it was important that it should continue.
What we're really trying to do in the period after Apollo is to take the gains that we've made with our experimental equipment, where men have done for the first thing, taking our equipment to the very limit, some very bold things. We're trying to reduce that now to a much more practical business of flying in space. What we're really trying to do is to take the kinds of technology that we have, let's say, in a modern jet liner, and combine that with the kind of propulsion systems we have in our giant rockets, and build a sort of a hybrid rocket plane that'll be able to fly up to space with rocket engines, taking off vertically like an Apollo. When it gets up to space, we'll be able to deorbit and come back through the atmosphere and land just like a jet airliner lands. All we have to do then is refuel it, and it can take off again, and we'll be able to go back and forth to space 100 times or so, thus cutting the cost of the launch vehicle by 100, since we get to reuse it 100 times over. And we're trying to do this in such a way that the launch requires far fewer people, that the refurbishment of the vehicle is very simple, and really trying to make this business of traveling in space, doing research in space, a very routine, low-cost thing to do.
There are always spin-offs from these sorts of programs in the commercial businesses and so forth. Anything you can think of? Is this continuing? Is this a profitable thing for U.S. business aside from space and
There's no question about it, and this is a story that we've had great difficulty getting over to the American people. I think partly because the spectacular missions to the moon are such dramatic things to watch. People have not really thought a great deal about the fact that we've had to advance every field of science and technology in order to get to the moon. The benefits to our aerospace industry have been very substantial, and the aerospace industry is the largest manufacturing industry in the nation. It has a backlog of orders of some $27 billion, and furthermore, it's our biggest earner of foreign exchange. Every airport in the world, you see all the different airlines of other nations, they all fly American aircraft. The aerospace industry, in fact, in the last couple of years, has earned twice the entire balance of payments of the United States. That is, they've earned the whole balance, and then they've carried on their back an equal number of industries that have been importing into this country. If we ever lose this great strength that we have in science and technology, we'll lose our position as the leading nation as far as the highest standard of living in the world goes. So we must keep a strong space station. We must continue to push ahead in science and technology.